So let's bring in investigative journalist Howard Bloom. He is the author of When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders. Also here, defense attorney Misty Marris and former senior FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole. I mean, it's shocking even to think about what we've just heard, let alone what happened inside of that courtroom and the sentencing. Howard, Kohberger, to call him a zombie might be an understatement in terms of his presence in that courtroom. He showed no remorse in court. He opted not to speak. That's, of course, his right. But will we ever know, will he ever reveal what happened and his motive?
I think we will get answers, but it will take a while. The prosecution, the judge, they said it's time to move on. The Gonsalves family, filled with their sort of Old Testament fury, was demanding answers. They even asked Kohberger, Olivia Gonsalves, asked him several questions, specific questions. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Where is the knife? Things like that. I think once he's in jail, he was in total control. He will answer these questions. He always wanted to be a forensic psychologist. In jail, he will get his opportunity to meet with what he feels are peers in the field, and he will begin to share these answers with us. And I think it was a mistake for the prosecution not to demand answers beforehand. I'm not talking about why. We'll never get a rational reason to explain why something did this, but we might get specific answers. Where is the knife? How did you get out of the house? All the blood that was revealed tonight in those documents. How did he get out without leaving a trace?
You know, Mary Ellen, just hearing Howard describe that.
So it's two segments.
And of course, thinking about that, Mary Ellen, the control part really sticks in my mind, Mary Ellen. The idea that this is about power and control and knowing full well that he has the information that people want. And the idea of him wanting to be someone who was in the field. I mean, there was a newly released document tonight. A former friend of his who was in the same criminology program as Kohberger revealed that Kohberger's area of study was actually criminal decision-making and crimes like burglary. So what does that tell you about Kohberger, Mary Ellen?
Well, it tells me a number of things about him. He has very flat affect, which means there's very little emotion that you see. He intellectualizes. That's certainly part of his personality. If they ever release those psychological tests, we'll know a little bit more about what might be more specifically behind this. I know from my own experience working these kinds of cases that someone that has psychopathic traits, the old term was sociopath, the new term is psychopathic, that these are individuals that are extremely cold-blooded. So they're not impacted by the damage that they inflict on other people. So I think that's very important. And also, I think his motivations, multiple, never one, are really a part of how he went into that house and why he went into that house, and that he planned it and he studied it, almost like carrying out a lesson plan. And I think that was also part of, again, part of his planning, part of his training, and part of his motivation. But again, I think it's important that we understand that there's never one reason, and I agree with your first guest, it will take a while, and he will get into prison, and he will brag, and he will lecture, and he will pontificate, and he will have people in his prison facility with him that will look up to him and will admire him.
It almost sounds like a plot line from like Silence of the Lambs, to have someone go in and try to pick the brain of somebody so sick in this way, and the idea of him bragging. I mean, Misty, the victims' families, they were split on the plea deal. Split is being generous. The Gonsalveses, they wanted the death penalty. The Knodels wished Kohberger had been forced to detail his crimes. The Mogans and the Chapins, they are wanting answers, but they're also trying and hoping to move on in their lives as well, remembering and honoring their loved ones. Here's what the lead prosecutor said about all of that split today.
We accept and recognize that not everybody agrees with the decision we made, but this isn't a popularity contest, and we made what we thought was the most appropriate decision under the law and on the facts to give this case closure in a sense that would never be realized otherwise.
We're just hearing him say it's not a popularity contest. I mean, it's a difficult reminder for people. The prosecution, they're not private counsel for victims. They don't work for the victims specifically and personally. They work on behalf of justice and what has happened, but it's really the jurisdiction, which is a hard pill to swallow for so many people. But why do you believe the prosecutors opted for this deal and made the statement of that it wouldn't have been realized otherwise?
So, Laura, listening to what prosecutors laid out today, which was really the path to the plea deal, that prosecutors were basically on the eve of trial. This trial was ready to start in just a couple of weeks. And they were keyed up and they were ready to go. And it was the defense that actually came to them and made the overture to discuss a plea deal. And that's when they came to the table and spoke to the victims' families and ultimately made a decision in their prosecutorial discretion to plead this out, take death penalty off the table. And Laura, it is a tough call, but remember, anything can happen at trial. And this gave finality, something that the lead prosecutor, Bill Thompson, said. When this door closes and you see Bryan Kohberger walking out in his shackles, this is closure. This is the case being over, allowing the families to put it behind them. Obviously, there was tension with some of the families about information that was withheld throughout the process, which I think was part of the issue with the plea deal. But ultimately, it was something that prosecutors determined was in the best interest.
The families wanted input. They wanted notice, but perhaps they thought it might compromise notice to the jury population. But you're right. There is no opportunity to appeal this final decision. Thank you, everyone, for your insight. We've got so much more ahead tonight.